Good morning, everyone. Sorry for the delay. We are expecting still the godmother for the whole cohort. Oh, you're here. Perfect. Sorry. So, welcome everybody. Thank you to be here for this final oral presentation of our P18 cohort. They're going to present us their second year project of their master. Up in the good sense. So first of all, I want to thank you, jury, to be there, either online or here, and you are many to be here today, so thank you. It's going to be a lot of more exchange, or more occasion of exchange with you for the students. So thank you for having been willing to follow the work of the students for these last 3 months. And yeah, this is it. Today is the final presentation, so you're gonna see the result of these 4 months of work of the students. So 4 months to work on conception and part of a pre-production of a whole game, and 4 months also to produce a kind of vertical slice to demonstrate the intention. So today we're gonna see the 6 projects. 3 this morning, 3 this afternoon, and as usual, during the break, the lunch break, and at the end of the day, we're going to have some times to let you go directly see the students on their workplace in the so-called plateau projet, so you can share with them. So each team will have 30 minutes to present and make a demonstration of the games. We're going to have then 15 to 20 minutes to exchange with them, so QA session. But let's, well, enough with my talk. Let's start with a round of applause to welcome the first team of this morning, Lost of Independence.
Hi everyone, we're gonna start. As she walks home by night, Everest is drawn to the lights and noise of an art gallery. Inside, she discovers a strange and mysterious venue. She soon realizes that touching a painting transports her into the depicted scene. In Lost in Depiction, explore mind-bending environments, transform them using your magical prism, and investigate a strange corruption that seems to threaten reality. We are making a first-person, single-player experience for computers. Lost in Depiction is an exploration game. It emphasizes the discovery of different paintings as small, contained worlds, each with unique characteristics, and a story the player will recompose as they go. It's also a game with interconnected paths, different abilities you must unlock to solve light puzzles, and shortcuts, gated zones, secrets, and backtracking. We call it a walking Simvania. It relies on 3 pillars: progression through exploration, the playful transformation of your environment, and an appeal to the player's senses. At its core, the game wishes to explore the fantasy of venturing into paintings as 3D environments. In these worlds, what is shown, what is hidden? How does a pictorial treatment translate into a live environment? And how can interactivity add a layer to this general experience? When she starts her adventure, our protagonist Everest finds herself locked in the gallery. With no way to escape, she makes the discovery that she can travel into every painting she encounters. Everest is equipped with a prism, a magical artifact she finds in the gallery. Empty at first, she can upgrade it with multiple abilities to solve light puzzles and progress through the environments. Story-wise, she quickly finds herself entangled into a centuries-old legend that she will have to unravel to get back to her reality. Drawing from our pillars and the concept of the experience, there will be 3 main gameplay axes for the player. They will explore the gallery and the paintings, they will transform their environments to progress, and they will recompose a fragmentary story. The exploration starts in the gallery. From there, the player will be able to enter each painting. However, it is designed as a central, evolving part of the game world rather than a simple hub. Its moving nature is what allows us to pace the experience, as the player will have to progress to unlock new shortcuts, new abilities, and new rooms and levels. The gallery features 8 to 10 paintings for a total of 5 to 6 hours of experience. Instead of fully fledged environments, the painting scope goes from enhanced rooms to rather short levels. We want them to be easily graspable for players so that they can progressively create a cognitive map of the game world. We are adopting a vanilla approach to exploration. Each painting will be layered, meaning the player can get through them all the way to their end and find a shortcut back to the gallery. However, they will see gated areas on the way, unreachable at first, and will need to come back to the level with new abilities to discover these areas. For the paintings, we're aiming a range of different environments, each with their own artistic treatment. We're using known paintings as archetypes, but we are creating our own ones, each with their own stories and level concepts. The goal is to play on variety and explore many different genres and types, from very abstract to figurative, from very rich to bare and unfinished, and be able to play on scale, lights, colors as triggers for interactivity. We want to create new paradigm for the player each time they enter a new painting. Our vertical slice displays 2 of these levels. A very figurative island, which plays on the idea of reflection, mystery, and features a day and night cycle, and an abstract dripping painting, where the challenge was to explore how abstraction could translate into a 3D space. Finally, the corruption is a central element to players' exploration. It's a strange matter, present in the gallery, on the paintings, and inside of them. It's what locks Everest in. It seems threatening and ever-expanding. It also plays a role in progression. In each painting, player will find a corruption node. Using the prism, they can erase it. It removes the corruption from the painting and chunks of it in the gallery, granting access to new areas. Doing so will also produce another effect. It's a feature we call overflow, which belongs to the transform aspect of our gameplay. As the corruption invaded the gallery, it messed up the architecture and locked access. However, when players erase a corruption node, they create an overflow. One of the main features of the painting will then replace the corruption in the gallery. In this example, clearing the corruption from our island painting fills the room with water and restores access to the opposite door to reach a new room in the gallery.
The main tool the player will have to transform the environment is the prism. This artifact is a multi-phase tool with many abilities that can alter the painting spaces. At the start of the game, the prism is empty. Player will unlock a set of abilities and upgrades progressively. These are Lux, to control the darkness. With it, the player can control light sources in the environment and affect light-related situations. Info-D, which reveals what the painting hides, like painter's repentir, mistakes, preparatory drawings, as new interactable shapes in the environment. Buffers, with which player can control perspective, making sure that what they see is what they get. And Stylus, the most advanced ability, which means player can mix the painting artistic treatments to see them in a new ways. The progressive unlock of these abilities is central to the game's exploration. This gives us an opportunity to pace the experience, providing more complex interaction as the game advances. However, we're intending at creating light puzzles, which complement the exploration rather than complex and hard-to-crack systems. Here are two situations with deluxe ability. In the first one, the player finds themselves confronted to a dark corridor and can throw light to progress. In the second one, they can use the ability to switch the scene from night to day. It lowers the tides in the environment, creating a strip of land which grants them access to the island. Infodis serve the following purpose. When preparing this painting, the painter made mistakes, drawing the central peak and scribbled over it out of spite. When the player reaches the same place inside the paintings, they're confronted with an empty tower. The top is unreachable. Luckily, they can use Infodis to reveal the scribble. It materializes as a climbable route to the top of the peak. Finally, the narrative is the red street the player will follow through the game. It relies on old folk tales. At a time when everyone believed image captures souls, it is said that an alchemist managed to channel this energy. His name was Odilon. He was the star of the European course, a miracle worker who was able to travel into artwork and transform them. Odilon fell madly in love with the portrait of a woman, Ophelia. He traveled into her painting and gave her life, but everything didn't go as planned. Ophelia awoke as a shapeless and cruel creature who fled into paintings. Driven by his blind love, Odilon started chasing her in a never-ending pursuit from painting to painting. Over time, this story has been linked to many paintings, displaying a corruption from unknown source. However, no one could decipher its origin, and it remained as a legend. In the present day, a collector cultivates an interest in Odilon's story. Through careful research, she grew convinced that there was truth to it. She gathered a massive quantity of artifacts relating to Odilon and Ophelia, as well as paintings displaying the corruption. However, she never managed to prove her theories, enter the painting, or give them life. She dies right before the game begins. The exhibition set up in the gallery is thrown by her estate to showcase her life works. During the game, the protagonist will have to fill the blanks. How is she able to enter the paintings while the collector failed at it her whole life? What is the corruption emanating from the paintings? And what happened to Odilon and Ophelia? To answer these questions, she will find story fragments in two forms: diary pages from Odilon that were left behind inside the paintings, as well as information in the exhibition coming from the collector. This will take the shape of artifacts, notes, and thematic room in the gallery. As the exhibition is unfinished and still being mounted, and since the gallery opens progressively during the game, we will be able to showcase all these elements sporadically and not overload the player with text to read and information all at once. The game will feature a story log in the form of an exhibition catalog. It fills itself with content when the player makes new discoveries. With all these elements, here's a quick sum up of our progression. The player will be able to explore the gallery and the paintings, but will eventually face unreachable areas. They will gain new abilities along the way, which help them transform their environment. Eventually, they will find and erase the corruption node inside the painting. Progressively, the player will recompose the story of Odilon and Ophelia through disseminated fragments. They will repair the game world, exploring all the paintings, which lead them to the game's ending.
Our intention towards sounds and visual is to create a credible setup that becomes more and more surreal. We want our players to feel that gradually, while passing through the gallery, which leads to the painting and their associated universes. To reach that feeling, we use as main references the Layers of Fear game series, but without the horror vibe, mixed with LSD Dream emulator. The game takes place in an art gallery, but we want to emphasize that our game is not only focused on paintings. Lost in Depiction is an experimental project in which we invite our players to go through museum and artistic spaces. As developers and artists, we strongly desire to experiment by mixing and transposing mediums with each other in a video game experience. Our main environments are the gallery and the levels inside each painting. As a player, the gallery is the first place you'll go through, and we want that place to have this credible but mysterious atmosphere, while it invites you to discover its secrets hidden behind some canvas. To design this particular space, we were mostly inspired by white cube museums and independent galleries.
Speaking about the paintings, we have built a unique scenography around them directly in the gallery by putting elements from them so they become a gateway where reality mixes with the painted world. Each painting has its own sound signature, composed of elements from the paintings and their art style that will leak inside the gallery to guide the player towards them. That is also why we chose to create original paintings in-game, to allow us complete freedom to design the in-game spaces. Regarding the corruption that's related to Ophelia, we have shaped it to feel gooey, viscous and lava-like for both visuals and sound. As they emit sound and are visually appealing, they will show points of interest scattered around the levels.
In the vertical slice, we chose 2 paintings to revisit for the project. We've created for each level a unique graphical treatment, as well as its own attached game asset, which is a reinterpretation of those real-life painting references. Speaking of them, to create variety and moods and shapes, we selected a very abstract painting, as Antoine said, from Janet Sobel, the creator of the dripping painting technique, and a more figurative one with the Idol of Dead painting series from Arnold Böcklin. Also, I would like to highlight that we use different iterative process while working on each level archetypes. For the island, the environment and puzzles are more gameplay related, and for jungle drips, we can go for the opposite and start our iterations from a visual intention before thinking of interaction. These experimental processes add some width to the project. Diversity of approach were a desire for us, and to continue developing the full game, that's how we would like to build other level archetypes. For every art pieces, our player would have the possibility to explore. Since we saw previously the paintings, let's dive into the environments inside them. For the island, we mainly focused on building an efficient global shape and how to recompose the painting's mood, composition and atmosphere in a game scene. That is how we chose to have their simple monolithic shapes and a lot of verticality, and also put an emphasis on the global color harmony. And here are our first iterations of what the level inspired by the abstract painting would look like. We have the idea to use what we see on the canvas as a ceiling when you enter in this 3D space, creating that all drips from the top. And even if this level is inspired by a 2D traditional painting technique in a video game 3D space, Jungle Drips is highly inspired by the medium of contemporary artistic installations. Including this transmedia approach was clearly one of the most exciting parts of the project. Here is how the level currently appears in the vertical slice. To further detail how we mixed different references, we evoked Janet Sobel's works as a starting point for the scene, and based from it, we provided our approach with art installations references, with mainly Yoi Kusama's Infinite Mirrored Room and spaces like Data.Path by Ryoji Ikeda. We were curious to transpose meditative and contemplative notions from those examples into a game experience, and see if it is possible to film the same way as when you enter in an artistic installation.
To achieve the ambitious artistic direction, we faces many technical challenge, artistic channel. So the first one was the drips we have just seen. So we have gone with way matching, with the algorithm often used for fluid-like simulation, and we optimize it a lot using dots and to parallelize computation. So our drips collide with the world and are interactable.
As we already mentioned, the prism is the main interactive asset in the game. It is a simple yet intriguing object made of a glass body that contains and displays the different abilities. Each of these abilities have their own visual identity. For Lux, we decided to condense the light in globes with a soft and organic movement to them, while for Info-D, it is inspired by the use of X-ray to reveal what is underneath the layers of paint. We also worked on how to represent the invisible objects that we can reveal with Info-D. The idea is to recreate the appearance of a pencil sketching to emulate the preparatory sketch with all the elements that the painter decided to include or not in the final picture. To create this effect, we coupled a pencil sketching post-process shader with a tool that we developed that allows us to apply visuals and shaders to specific objects through decals.
To achieve the effect we just present, we had the idea of an innovative system called the DDES. Usually in video games, we use 3 different spaces for visual effect: object space for object shader, screen space for post-processing, and word space for decals and particle system. The DDES uses decals to send information like color and UVs to other spaces. And then we use those information to apply some effect. The DDES was at first a clever hack of the render pipeline of Unity, but we've made it better over time. And in the last version, we added custom render paces in the high-definition render pipeline. The workflow was made way simpler, with only a material to make and a checkbox to check. The DDES became more useful too, with the addition of other buffers like def and normals. About performances of the DDES, we are very confident since we only have a 10% increase in computation time for 10 times more decals. The system being based on the Unity decal system, it's already well optimized. Here are some additional examples of the power of the DDES. We can have pop-up geometry, mesh swapping, and way more. This could be explored further in a full experience. And now, a gameplay video.
Currently, we have many core features implemented in the game, such as localization, user interface, and data persistence. However, we will take time during the following weeks to rework and polish technical aspects that don't meet our ambitions, develop tools to help us accelerate the process of getting feedbacks, and implement features that will help us better convey our intentions through the vertical slice. As for the full experience, production will mainly focus on developing level-based interactions, as well as the remaining abilities, Bathus and Stellus, all their upgrades, and finally, accessibility features, as Chris will explain.
Thank you, Nino. So about accessibility, we decided as a team that we wanted to make our game as accessible to as many people as possible. Our intentions were to bring down barriers and to allow players to adjust the game to better respond to their needs. Here you can see examples of what is in-game. We've responded by implementing various standard features most wanted by gamers, but in the full version of the game, we'd like to offer something for those who are cognitively impaired or just don't have the mental energy to solve puzzles at the end of the day. We imagined that this could take the form of a tour mode, where the puzzles are solved automatically, and players can experience the whole game as if they were being guided. We firmly believe that accessibility can be expanded upon, and we can offer more if the product is developed. Now, moving on, as you've seen from my teammates, all of this work also means a need for playtesting. A protocol was developed, meetings over a span of a month to take into account the changes in the product, and also the intention of the devs. And the playtest was adjusted in consequence. You'll see to the left the types of questions we wanted to answer, and the beginning of our questionnaire to the right. As you'll see over the next 2 slides, we split our needs over 2 types of data: appreciation, how players felt and thought about an element, and comprehension and usability, how did players learn, use, and understand what was available to them. In close collaboration, we endeavored to answer these questions for our possible test. In order to better inform design decisions and confirm that our concept is having the desired effect, we wanted to locate, I actually did a strange thing. We wanted to locate and understand better how the game was perceived, but also areas where we could better improve players' ability to understand intuitively, but also make sure we were giving them enough tools, pacing the experience correctly, and if we were bringing to the players what we want most, to have fun.
In order to develop what we just talked about, let's talk quickly about the production. We estimate we need 2 more months for pre-production and to finish to develop the vertical slice, 4 months to develop features as prism abilities, narration, etc. 7 months for production units, I will talk about it just after, and 2 months for post-production, so polish and check the coherences of the project. This brings us to 15 remaining months of production for 105 people a month and at maximum staffing of 10 people. Now let's talk about the production units. Each painting and each art piece is 1 level and is a production unit. It is composed of 1 art piece asset, like paintings, for example, and the first environment, which is the theme room, where the art piece is displayed in the gallery. Then a second environment with the art piece level, the 3D space and its puzzle, and finally the end of the level and its consequences. A production unit takes 4 weeks to be developed. We start testing the puzzles during the 2nd week in order to iterate quickly and to gain as much time as possible. We then have a complete week to test the entire production unit. Now regarding the budget, it has been done by taking the average salaries from the SNJV reference documents and adding salary costs and equipment and licenses. This brings us to 445,000 euros for the 15 remaining months. And to have a more accurate budget, we also added an estimation of how much work we've already spent on the project. Following the same calculation, we already invested 140,000 euros for over 4 months of pre-production. This brings us to a total of 585,000 euros for the complete production. Then we plan to sell the game at 18.99 euros. This means an average 8.49 euros profit for each copy after removing the taxes from platforms and possible discounts. By selling the game at this price, we need to sell about 62,000 copies in order to break even. In order to justify this retail price, let's take a look at the competition analysis. First, we can find games already on the market that share our characteristics. However, we differentiate ourselves from our competition given that we have multiple artistic directions in our project. But the main point is we have different production characteristics than these games. They cost more with more people and more time. From this point of view, it seems we do not have direct competitors with the same production characteristics than us. But we can still extract data from these games. First, the average time to finish them is 3.5 hours. As a reminder, we expect to propose almost twice this time, and the average retail price is 18.99 euros, price we choose to sell our game at. However, PlayStation recently announced Viewfinder. This game, as you can see, shares similar unique selling points with us, multiple artistic directions and environmental puzzles to solve. However, we still lack information regarding its production characteristics, but we will assume Viewfinder will be a direct competitor to Lost in Depiction. The thing to remember from Viewfinder is that it is a mark of interest for the market. And thank you very much for your attention.
So, yeah, first reaction. If you can present yourself once again before the question, thanks.
Hello, Vincent Comeduzou, I'm a designer at Ubisoft. First of all, thank you for your presentation. And I had a question about your progression in the long term. You told us that we want the abilities to evolve, to upgrade. Can you explain how they are supposed to evolve? Are there new powers and abilities, or do we upgrade those that we already have?
So there are in total the 4 abilities we mentioned, and then the upgrades we were thinking of, for instance, would be the idea that the lights could be shadows. You could throw shadows in your environments and have the opposite. And the same way for the Info D abilities, we merged it with another one, which was we called blank canvas at the time, and was the idea of removing the painting from the inside, so removing shapes and progress through the environments. So yeah, it's often like complementary to the initial ability.
Thank you.
Come back for the next question.
Hello, Alexandre Lutz, lead artist at Ubisoft Bordeaux. So thank you for the presentation. So I'm slightly disappointed in the art, to be honest. I know you wanted like a minimal approach, but the game, the museum and its render overall feels a little bit underworked. There is not really much care to lighting, to shading, etc. So I appreciate the take arts effort, but it feels that they were really oriented to tech and not really art. Like the painting doesn't feel like painting, like the goo that's dropping from the ceiling, etc. Everything looks very glowy. Like there is a relation to matter that is like not really here. And for a game about painting, it's a bit underwhelming. So I was wondering if like you had other ambition or like tracks of improvement for an eventual continuation of the project. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback. We are conscious that the project is a bit ambitious, and we truly appreciate the feedback because it's true. We have put lots of efforts in technical arts and much more in experimental thing. And we had a really big conception and pre-production phases. And I guess we do not lost any time with experimentations since we have a bit more and larger than other projects. But still, it has been a bit of difficulty in the production. Then we get a lot of stuff to, je sais pas comment dire trier, je suis vraiment navrée. Sort, and then choose, and then apply. And since it's still an experimental thing, we were like, we don't know everything we are making, but we are making it in the rush. It was difficult, but still, it's a work in progress, and that's the prototype here.
Thank you. Stephen Nutkin, retired gallerist. As I came to video game through an art gallery that I owned a long time ago. So I like very much your project, and I like also the fact that you are really minimalistic in your point of view about the gallery and the art, probably in the contrary of the questions. I have my main question is the video you show us, you are running quickly in the gallery. Do you think you can make something where each time you see a painting, you have to spend some time to look at it and to understand the painting? Which leads me to the next question. In the case you say no, forgot the next question. But if you answer yes, did you thought to make your game with the partnership of a museum who has the possibility to reproduce the paintings, or with living artists who will make with you some levels? And which leads to the last question. In this case, do you have a mod? Do you have a level editor which allows you to introduce new paintings in the game?
Thank you, Stefan, for the question and the feedback. So for the first question, the mise en scène is something that we would definitely want to work more as the game continues to be produced. And so a fine understanding and observation of the paintings is definitely something we're aiming for. As for the second one, it's been a question since the start, the tension between do we need to go with real paintings and or create our own ones. I think we really liked as Rachel said, the iterative process of working together and creating our own sort of stories and starting from different ends, should it be gameplay or just an artistic visual or audio intentions. And so I think we would want to continue that route to produce the full game.
Hello, David Bowman. I am Studio Development Director at Creative Assembly in the UK. I love your presentation. You did a lot of work that comes through. We really can see that you worked hard on this. So I just want to start with that. On the art, I've got a number of notes here, and I'll share with you later. But on the art question, art is subjective. You're going to get a lot of people's opinion on your art. I do think it's important for you to hit the standard that you want, and it feels right now, if you were coming to me as one of my teams, I would say you're not ready to pass this gate. You've got still more pre-production work to do. You know it, it's in your budget, it's in your schedule. So you're not ready to answer all of your questions that you have yet, so you don't really know what you're going to cost, because you don't, until you've answered the unknowns, you can't build that schedule and that budget. I think you're onto something, you're going in the right direction. I think you've got really strong traditional art skills in your team. Someone did these paintings, right? And so I think the paintings are very good. Yeah. I love whoever did the iconography on the wall, the character, black and strong. That's really strong. But it feels so disparate and separate, and it needs to be integrated and flowing and part of what you're doing. I don't feel like you have that environmental artist and lighting artist who's going to help realize that skill set. You've got ambition, you've got skill set, but I don't think you have yet the person that you're looking for or people that you're looking for to actually express it in the 3D environment. Whatever that ends up being, and there's a lot of good technology behind that. I was impressed with the work that you were doing in technology. That was really cool. As an experimental project, I think fantastic. As a studio development director, you're asking me for a budget. I'm saying you're not ready yet. But it's a really good project. And so you could get there from where you are. And now my question. Sorry, all of that was commentary. Question. You briefly said that you want short levels. What's short mean? How long is short? What is your ambition, or why? Tell me the why behind that short levels.
First of all, thanks for all the feedback. I think we all agree with you. We need to find the right people and staff up for the art if we were to continue the project. For the levels, I think it's just that we know that since the start, and I think all the past presentations we've done, when we talk about the paintings and different levels, people imagine huge environments. And so it was just to counterbalance that. I think the island, which you show a glimpse of, in terms of scale, is maybe the biggest thing that we want to do. And so it's just achieve something where you can have more interdependencies and interconnections between the paintings and the gallery, and an easier flow to come back between all of these, rather than entering a level and having a lot of things to do and never coming back to it. So I think the rationale was that. Yeah.
So yes, thank you very much for this presentation. I think we're all really fan of what you made here. So I'm Isaac from the University of Lausanne, and I have a lot of questions actually, but I think they all go in the same direction. That is the meaning of quite everything, because what you showed there is a lot of, for example, in that special level, it was quite obvious what you had to do. And for me, the question was, do you want or do you plan to make it more complicated? And if yes, in which way? So I think maybe combining the different powers could be a solution. But even more than that, I mean, you're completing those paintings, and what's the point? I mean, is it just a barrier I have to cross? Because you have to block the player for some minutes because you want to sell it? Or is it more, it serves a special purpose? So that's the first question. And the second question is, and I think that's maybe there that you can find a way out, is in one sentence, can you say what is this corruption about? Because you make a huge mystery on this. And I think there's a way to answer, which is, you don't have to touch paintings, it's a bad thing. Thank you very much for being there. And I think it's not really interesting. And there is another way which can maybe, I think if you answer to that, maybe then you can go back to that experience and say, when I'm completing a painting, because you also selected the black color, so I think there's a link between it. So for me, the question is, have you thought about all this? And if not, do you plan to do it? And if yes, in what direction? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think the first question was two questions. So like for the puzzle's complexity and stuff, I think what we're aiming for is more to have, I think what we have in the vertical slice currently is more of a proof of concept of our abilities rather than actual content we would want in the full game, except for a couple of moments that we showed in the slide actually, so the scribble moment or something that really relates to the painting rather than, for instance, the light pedestals and more puzzly thing that we show, which was more, to have a progression in the vertical slice, but we don't feel really convey these intentions. Another thing which is, I think, what prompts also that reaction is we would really want to have more environmental narration in the paintings. And so you follow that route of Odilon and Ophelia. They were there before you, and we really want to show that, and for that to be interesting in the exploration, which it's something that we had to cut to produce the vertical slice. I'm trying to remember the second part.
It was more about corruption. I mean, what's the, if you had to answer in one sentence, what is this corruption, why, and can it be linked to this kind of exploration?
So the corruption is, in the lore, the corruption is like the result of Ophelia. Like this entity has been created by Odilon, and she's like a collection of multiple souls that were trapped into images and paintings. And so the idea is that it's not something he should have done, right? So she's a composite sort of creation that drips into the paintings as she flee from him. And so the idea is the corruption is destroying the artworks. So she's passing through the artworks, and the corruption is destroying them from the inside, but you can see it in the reality. So actually, one of the quests of our protagonist is to prevent that from happening.
Then I'm done, huh? Be sure. What you said looks really interesting to me, and I'm just sharing this with you, but it could be maybe interesting if at one time I would discover that exploring the picture, I'm also, because all what we see here is that we are taking corruption away, but actually I'm making what the character was making. So if at a point of the game I discover that exploring the picture is also endangering them, or maybe bringing back corruption, it could maybe put more pressure on the gameplay. Because at that point I'm saying, okay, will I make this move? Because if it fails, maybe I'm worsening the thing. Because right now what I see like a danger is just cycling to the objects and trying everything. So maybe there you have some kind of pressure who can be directly integrated in the narration. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jacinto Canel from Tec de Monterrey in University in Mexico. Well, I think many things have been said, so I'll be very quick. You quickly mentioned about platforms and monetization, and I'm curious about the porting being considered into the production cost, because I don't think it matches much, because porting, it depends on how many platforms, and it's okay not to have the answer on which actual platforms are you planning to publish it. It's okay at this stage, but if you're talking about platforms and monetization, you should consider the cost of porting into the production plan. Yeah.
Thank you for your question. First, for now we only plan to develop the game for computer and not for consoles. For now, because the technologies we use might be complicated to implement and to port on consoles. If in the future we're able to port it on console, indeed the budget we presented is not complete. Like it does not take into account ports, but also marketing and this kind of stuff. So for now, only computer, and we'll need more budget if we want to port it on other platforms.
Yeah, but that's important to mention on your presentation.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I do have, I think, two more questions, and sorry, it was...
Hello, I'm Mylène. I do some marketings. First, congrats on the presentation. You are almost done, so yeah. It's not really a question, it's more a comment. I love your pitch. And in marketing, you have something you call USP, unique selling points. And I think yours are more about like the story and explorate paintings. And on the presentation, you really focus on gameplay. For me, like your gameplay is not a selling point. It's more something which will serve the exploration and narration. I would have preferred, like, instead of having a full gameplay video, having a video which focus on exploration, immersion also, which is not really here in your gameplay presentation. For example, for the text, you click on the text. I don't have the time to read any single line, and it's just to show that you have text in the game, which is a little bit weird. And same, for example, for notes. You find some notes of Odilon, and it just text when he is an artist, so it should be better to have some sketches that you have to understand, and which also could show during the game that is becoming a little bit crazy, so with like intensive writing or whatever. So for me right now, you have the selling point, but you don't really focus on them, and yeah, like narration, exploration should have a bigger places in the presentation. And yeah, even exploring the painting, you could have think about some stuff you will discover inside the painting, which are not really notes, but you can say, "Oh, this is weird," and then later you understand what it was here. So yeah, like this is something I think you have missed. But yeah, like that's happened because I know it's also when you are doing a game, you want gameplay. So like lots of people. So yeah, like this should be something you could work on if you work on the project later.
Thank you very much for the feedback, and I think we completely agree with you. That's also what I was mentioning when I was saying we were missing probably environmental narration, and that's something we really wanted to have in the paintings. Is we cut that part, even though knowing that it was really important to the game, but it's just because we had to make choices as a team and be able to advance. But definitely that is something that is right now a bit underwhelming, I think, in the vertical slice compared to the standard we would have wanted to achieve. And so that's why it doesn't show in the gameplay video, because we don't think it's staged as we would have wanted to. And so if we had given the chance to read the text, etc., I think it would have also given a wrong image of that, which is our selling point. So that's why.
Hello. Thank you for your presentation. I am Salomé Strabazan, art director at Ubisoft Bordeaux. It was very impressive, all your progression from the very beginning. I really love your project and your game. I'm agree with all the feedbacks you already get. So yes, you still have lots of video game artwork to do on the gallery and even in the painting after that. You focus a lot on the paintings that you've done by yourself, and I agree with Stéphane. I think on your game you should offer the players a time to have a deep look in front of them to really appreciate, especially if you want to be a kind of link between video game and museum. It's something important. Something very appreciable as well is the work on the sound. It was very immersive. Maybe you can think about having a twist on the sound when you are in the painting, walking into the painting. It could be different, and it could be offer something else very interesting as well. So that's it for me. Thank you for your presentation. It was very awesome. You did it well.
Thank you for the feedbacks.
Thank you. It was the last question for this group, so let's congrats them. It was great work. And let's welcome the next team, Spike. If the next team can come. Spike, let's welcome them.
Test. Test.
Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you very much, Catherine, for the introduction. So before we talk about the project, let's have a quick look at the team behind the game. So Liam right here is our project manager. Amaury and I worked on game design. The visual arts pool is composed of Astrid and Martin, and they had additional help for the vertical slice from Hélène, Raphaël, Blanche, and Solène. Thank you very much over there. Gabriel is our sound and music designer. Ilan, Ludovic, and Tristan worked on programming, and Benoit, who isn't with us today, but he's watching us, hopefully, hello, works on user research and UX design. So without further ado, let's go straight to the game. Right. Perfect. I know you've been waiting to see what it looks like. Shivering with anticipation. Perfect. Perfect. Gonna be an issue. All right. Spike is a hardcore solo action adventure game in isometric 3D, in which you play as a very cute hedgehog using their own spikes as a weapon. So, in a few words, what is Spike? So you play as a hedgehog, which is quite a cool thing. You'll find challenging and impactful combat, contrasted with round and stylized visuals, and our animation is stop-motion inspired. So, as a mutant hedgehog, you can throw your spikes. This can be used to skewer enemies, or pin them against the wall, or interact with the environment. As you can see, you have a limited number of spikes, 6 at the moment. You can hold down a button to focus and get your spikes back. They go back one at a time, and you are completely still while doing it. So it's quite a vulnerable affair. It's critical to find openings in enemy attacks to get your weapons back. And finally, you can roll to dodge attacks or squash enemies. So these are the base mechanics that are going to be very useful to fight against enemies or interact with the environment in our game. What you're seeing here is a little playground we built to show you the mechanics. And now we can go and see what a real level looks like. So what you'll see is a snippet of one of our thematic zones that you can see in the game. We are the part of the game where all the core mechanics have been introduced, and the player has a little bit of experience, about 4 hours of experience with the game. So now the presentation is in Amaury's hands. Let's give him some encouragement and be with him during the presentation. All right, so you're embarking on a journey across a post-apocalyptic land filled with monsters, junk and strange substances. Spike, our main character, is a tiny hedgehog, survivor of a strange mutation that confers him some very odd powers. You will go on your goal is to take revenge on a villain that decimated your peers. You will go on a quest for revenge and fight for your survival. So Amaury just crossed paths with what we call the termites and just drank a little potion after that because he still got hit. The termites is a vicious mob that dodges the spikes and challenges fast decision making and spatial placement. On their way through the adventure, the player can activate checkpoints, which are the little things right here. Perfect. They are usually placed in dangerous situations. Yeah. So, after this intense fight in a close space, good job, you did a good job, it looked tough, I couldn't do that. The player can spend their currency that they gained throughout the fight in a little shop. This is one way they can progress throughout the game. And now we are rich. Or are we? Not enough. So we got one extra potion. So during the combats we just saw, you encountered the termites and also the spike catcher. The spike catcher further challenges you on spatial placement by catching the spikes and throwing them back at you. You also heard the interactive music that supports the tension, but also gives information to the player because it evolves following 3 parameters: the enemy number, the player life, and the character actions. So now we have another encounter where you can have a closer listen to the music. All right. Well, death is a part of a game, obviously. It's a hardcore game. So thank you very much for showing that. It was all part of the plan, obviously. All part of the plan. As you can see right now. Okay, he wants to do it again. All right, go for it. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, perfect. All right, so let's try again. Okay. Okay. Where can we? Are you sure? Okay. Third time's a charm. Ah, yeah. Yes. So hopefully you could hear all the variations of the encounter music to that. But now you arrive at a life pool. There are safe places where the player can take a breather and fill up on health before continuing their adventure.
We evolve in a round world, a chunky post-apocalypse universe between waste and nature. We want to give plenty of detail to the environment by having strong visual and sound textures to produce the feeling of evolving in a tangible toy world that we can explore. We are a very small hedgehog, and we want to discover a big world full of wonder and novelty. So, thanks to the change of scales, we've got a new naive look at some objects to remain of a human society. So, during the exploration, the player can occasionally hear some soft piano jazz chord with Gambri on the top, and as you can hear, we can have some piano cue played when we discover a new landmark. So we're gonna have a fast walk. We're gonna have to go on the next area and to see what our player is capable of.
Yes, sir. So let's go to the new arena. It's a quick succession of waves of mobs. The arena challenges the player on their stamina. So hopefully you're feeling okay. That's cool.
Okay, congratulations. So, to reward this fantastic performance, your player got a chance. This is a gameplay modifier. It could be spikes that explode on impact or spikes that bounce on wall, and equipping these charms take up slots, and therefore you, the player, have to manage what you equipped. So let's see what you are. Okay, shockwave. So when we're charging up the 6th spike, the character produces a shockwave that pushes enemy back. This is precious help in critical situation.
So here we arrived in a little bit a darker part of the level with more substance plaguing the world. We can continue on with the yeah. And you can see that there are more and more fireflies in the level as you progress through the environment. We also have a second type of enemy that we briefly saw at the arena, which is the mosquito, which charges up at you and explodes on impact. Another source of stress for the player.
So this is a little cliffhanger. The boss you encounter here at the end of the level is a mix between a variation of the spy catcher you already seen and the explosive fireflies that you have been introduced previously. This enemy bounce and create shockwaves that fill the arena. And also, this mob spit out some group of explosive fireflies that making the arena especially dangerous to navigate. So you guessed it, our bosses represent a big spike of difficulty and intensity in our world. They come as an apex point in our gameplay loops that switch between combat and navigation.
So we briefly talked about it during the slice, but let's talk about progress overall in the game. So first of all, you progress in the narrative structure. So you begin in the game and you wake up in a broken experiment capsule at the shore of a toxic river. Then you'll have to fight for your survival until you discover the corpses of dead hedgehogs that are your peers and that are in the same capsules you came from. This is the real disruptive element, giving Spike the reasons to fight revenge. After a while, you'll discover the place where the experiments took place and what their goals were. And the next step of your quest is to find who is responsible for all this. And at the moment you do, you'll be hunted down by their minions. All the while, you'll try to reach the mastermind to take them down. Along with the narrative progression, the player can progress by upgrading their character. They can influence the following 3 parameters. They can take more damage by increasing their max life. They can also equip charms that take up slots, and you have a limited number of slots, which it can somewhat extend during the game. You can progress in the game by completing arenas, we saw, or defeating bosses. Being attentive and finding mysterious nooks and crannies in the environment. Or, as you saw in the demo, spending some currency that you have by defeating some mobs. So, Spike is intended to be a challenging experience. I think you understand that, but it's also a rewarding experience. And we want as many people as possible to enjoy the game. To do so, we have included options that allow players to alter game mechanics. So, for example, having an infinite number of spikes, or spikes that load at a press of a button, rather than having to wait for the whole focus. You can also modify the game difficulty by having more health, or having less mobs in the environment, for example. And we have accessibility options as well to fit specific needs, such as toggling stop motion animations, or modifying contrasts, and lots of other things.
Okay, now so let's talk about some figures. Our target audience is made of core and hardcore gamers who are 15 years old and older. We specifically target players who are fond of hard challenges, but also enjoy cute and stylized universe. In some ways, you could say that our promises resemble those of Tunic. But what really sets us apart is that the player to feel tense in every single fight. Every encounter matters. Every enemy is a serious threat to the fragile hedgehog you are. Our game world is made of multiple thematic zones that are linked together. Our goal is to give a unique mood to each thematic zone. From a deserted convenience store with mushrooms growing everywhere to a barrel of chemical worship by vile creatures, each zone has a unique relationship to the substance that coat the landscape. Each zone has their beautiful environment to explore, their unique boss that challenges the player in new ways, some mobs and NPCs that will share their story, arenas to challenge our player endurance and mastery. We want to reward players with more content and fun things to do. We do this by creating gameplay modifiers, the charms, and toys that don't have a practical use to them, but are fun to play with. For example, in the level you saw the plants and the gacha balls. This represents a total of about an hour and a half of gameplay per zone for our players. Thanks to the pre-production, we developed a good knowledge of how to make the game and created tools to aid the development. We have easily tweakable parameters on the character controller that are meaningful to designers and useful for A/B testing. Same goes for our enemies that have blocks that can be combined to easily create new variations. We have a huge event system used to implement the sound design, the interactive music system during encounters, with a threat system on enemies. And we have a stop-motion script that allows us to decide which frame rate we want for each animation. This gives us granularity and flexibility in our animations. Anyways, you get it, we have a lot of things in place to work efficiently hand in hand. About the feature list for the full game, we have 9 thematic zones, 9 bosses, 20 charms, about 60 mobs, and about 20 toys. With 9 zones in the game, this comes to a total of 14 hours of content. To make our game, we need a little more pre-production time, about 6 months. You might wonder why. In fact, the vertical slice showcases our core gameplay, but we want to take the time to explore all the other features of our game and give ourselves some more space to be creative. This also includes the boss fight, which will require a certain amount of time to be operational. Thanks to all the tools and knowledge we've developed, we know that we require 2 months to finish a thematic zone. With 9 zones in the game, we require 16 months of production. To make the game as perfect as possible, we would like 4 additional months dedicated to polish and localization, with a launch planned at the start of the 2025 school year. With team size varying throughout the production according to our needs, the game will cost close to 2.4 million euros. Other costs will be added to this, like the QA or the localization, but we expect the publisher to estimate those since it's not our domain of expertise. We will ask for 150K to the CNC and a similar amount from the Nouvelle-Aquitaine. The publisher will complete the difference, will be asking for 2.1 million. After a comparison with our competitor, we plan to sell the game almost 40 euros. This means that in order to break even, we will need to sell at least 130,000 copies. This is taking into account taxes, distribution fees, and discount sales. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Another very good presentation. Greatly improved. I saw the movement from your very first presentation to this one, and I hope you're proud of yourselves because that presentation capability is much, much stronger. You did a really good job on that. You've got a fun, playable game. It's easy to understand. People grasp it really quickly. So there's probably going to be feedback that is more detailed rather than broad because, oh, you could improve it this way, you could improve it that way. I'll write those in my notes. I won't spend them here. You didn't talk about, I didn't hear the platform that you were going to be releasing on. Did I miss that?
Yeah, we didn't talk about it. It's for PC computer person and Switch.
Okay, because you were playing with a controller, it really feels like a controller-based game. You might want to challenge that and look at a partnership as well with one of the platformers to go, oh, I haven't got a game that's really going to be good for your platform. So that's another way to approach what you're trying to do. Characterization. You've got a character who's much better. Again, progression. I still think there's a texture pass or there's some work there to do to really bring it to life, right? To make it an iconic character that people are going to want to go buy the character in the store, right? You want to finish that detail. And I think a lot of my feedback will be along, here's an opportunity to make that character just a little bit more lovable. And just, I think that's what it is a whole series of opportunities that you can now take advantage of based on what you've built to make your character more complete, more identifiable, more relatable, and more, especially the audio, I think there's a great chance for the character's audio to become iconic as well and to spend time there. So just a real true question other than the platform question, I just want to give you that feedback. This is a really good project. It would be something I would be saying, okay, yeah, how do you make this happen? So.
Thank you very much.
Bonjour, hello, César from Asobo Studio. So very good presentation and a very good game. Looks a lot of fun, and I really like that you play the game live because we usually get to see a video, and I really like to see the gameplay and the fails. So good job. I was kind of curious, why do you plan on making so much like enemies and such a big game with a really small concept that looks very fun? I would buy this game for probably 20 euros and 3-4 hours gameplay. I'm not seeing that as a big game for like 40 euros and like, I don't know, 15 hours gameplay. I don't remember the exact figure. So I'd be curious to know why this choice, and do you really think it would work this way? Can you actually allow yourself to spend 2 years working on this game? Yeah. That's it.
Well, we really think that we can make a really great game by adding a lot of things on it. I cannot answering the question, but we don't know. I think we just want to dream a bit when we made this game. So really put what we want it to be on it, and we really think it can work, because I think what we do in this slice proves that we can do more with what we have, with the controller we have, with the fun we can add to it.
Yeah, okay, I agree. You can probably do more, and you did a great job. Okay, sometimes keeping it small and concise is better than making too much. But okay, great job. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback.
Hello, Alex from UB Bordeaux. So congratulations on your presentation. The game was really cool to watch. And from here, okay, I didn't play the game yet, but it looks like you really care into having a great game feel. And you thought about timing, readability of action, and stuff, and it shows. Sure, it's a prototype, but it shows that you understood what you needed to do, so that's great. So just a quick feedback on art. You have great intentions. Like I really like the scale and the opportunity it gives you. Like there are many productions out there that have the same kind of scale that are great. Still, it creates a calling. Like you want to be able to look at details and stuff. For now, it's a bit under-realized, but you have the key, I think. Yeah, so you made great choices, and congratulations again.
Just thank you. It's very cool feedback.
I think there's a question online, Marion.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, so Marion from Ubisoft. Thank you for the presentation. It was super cool to see the live game. And I have a question on progression, because from what I understood in the vertical slice you made, you are aiming to have a lot of charms, and they are, from what I saw, they are a bit random in your progression. So you are introducing a roguelike approach to your game, from what I understood. Is it correct? And if it's correct, can you say a bit more about your meta progression and the replayability of the game?
We don't have randomness in the unlockability of charms, and so you have to find charms, and some charms are coming from optional challenges, and there's like personalization of the gameplay style through the charms you are choosing to fight with. But there's no roguelike elements in the game.
I can just add a little thing. It's just that the charms are linked to the zones that we have. So there are themes with mechanics and mobs, and most of the time the charms are linked to the things you discover in the zone. And after you get the opportunity to play with it yourself.
Okay, thank you. It was very clear.
Hi, I have a question. Stephen Atkin, starter producer, so I will take a producer point of view. No, I like very much your demo. It's a very funny and colored world. Maybe for a presentation to producer, you should shorten a little the demo part. I have one technical question and one question about. From the demo, I thought that the behavior of the enemy was rather predictable. You didn't you didn't show it too much as a player, but I thought that you can understand. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure, but you can predict what will happen if you look to the player sometimes. So my technical question is how you want to enhance the IA of the enemies. And I have more a comment about production. I think you are 4 to 5 times too expensive for such a game. And also, I think you should clearly think with a game like that to make a cell phone or iPad version, because it's probably the place. I know there are a lot of games on mobile, but it's the biggest market. 60% of game market is now on mobile. And you have a game which can be, you have to change probably a part of the gameplay, but you should think about something like that. And also you should compare to comparable games. You didn't show what. And when I saw your game, not from the game point of view for the universe, I thought immediately on Botanicula. The game, look who are playing Botanicula, and it's not the same gameplay. It's much more exploration and change, and the enemy change more. You should really look to comparable games.
Well, thank you for the advice, and Tristan, maybe you want to answer about the AI.
About the AI, we have we wanted to have predictable enemies, but with short timing to react. That improves the reward for the player who success to dodge an attack. He knows the attack will come, but he has a really short time to adapt himself. So that was the intention of the game design of the fights, and that's where we pushed it as much as possible here. And I don't know if the game designer want to add something about the fight.
There's something, and we don't want players to have like insane reaction times, but it's more about precision and fast decision making, and being able to see what's happening around you, and to adapt to all monsters that are around you. Right now, to enhance the AI, we could have more behaviors for enemies, but behaviors that are always well signed in order for the players to understand what's going on.
And finally, I just want to add another thing. We briefly talked about it when we said that we wanted to explore things with the remaining time in the pre-production. One of the things was AI coordination between themselves. So that's something that we want to do, and that will also improve the function of the AI, I believe.
Okay, so thank you very much. I can't wait to play Spike, actually. Two quick remarks. First one is on stop motion. Right now, I'm not really sure, maybe it's just for the prototype or the tech demo, but you have that character which is stop motion, and the environment was flowing naturally. And it looked like, I'm not really sure right now it adds something. It showed more laggy than something else. So maybe, but you have time to correct this. Second thing, maybe more important, is that it's really a grasping universe in a visual way. And I think I really want, if I was playing that kind of game, to get totally the HUD totally out of the thing. So Do you think that all the interface, I know it's quite light, you have some information about life points and so on, but do you think it's possible to totally erase it, to make more room for this? And a question for me was, actually the spikes are like a currency in that game, because you, with this character, this opponent, which is really interesting, you send a spike to them and then they show it back to you. And it made me think if there was more ways to play with that. I mean, for example, a monster attacks me, I lose spikes. Maybe even spikes are actually the life, though. So did you think on linking absolutely life to spikes? I know it can change a lot of things, because that means that if you're on the last spike, maybe your life, it's more dangerous, but maybe it can be more powerful because it's the last one. And in that kind of setting, maybe you can just eradicate the notion of life. I'm at one spike, I'm really powerful, but it's, yeah, I'm dead if I'm losing it.
We'll get the hang of it. Okay, so the first thing was about stop motion animation. Yeah, that's something we're still exploring. We found a script that allows us to choose the steps for each animation. So that's why some animations have more steps than others. And that helps us keep the fights easy to read also. Yeah, that's something we're still exploring for sure, but we can easily take it out at any moment, because the animations are made with the full frame rate. That's also an accessibility feature that we want to put in the game. And then for the spikes. So we did at some point think about linking stuff, but so as you say, it produces a kind of a negative loop of when you don't have any life, then you don't have any options anymore. So that's why we chose to keep it separate. For the HUD, we at the start we didn't have any feedback on the HUD, on the number of spikes you had. We wanted the spikes on your back, but we found that it was a bit hard to read for the thing, so it was quite essential to have that information doubled. But that's again something that we can totally have as a feature that you can toggle on and off according to the experience you want to have. Did I forget something? I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Hello, Milan, I'm marketing people. So I have a question about your price. How did you come up to this price? Because you will be in front of It Takes Two, Rust, Sea of Thieves, and I agree, we do have a lot of indie games with like price which are lower than it should be, but I think yours it's way too much expensive. Like Tunic, it's 29 euros with the same experiment time, like the same experience, kind of same graphics. It's your direct competitor, and you are like 50% more expensive, almost. So yeah.
The purpose is to play with the reduction of price to sell more game during like Steam sold or anything like this.
Yeah, like usually I see this, it's a common mistake people do. It's like, okay, our production budget it's like big, so we need to sell a lot of game or higher price, but maybe you should just try to cut some stuff in your games to lower the production budget, and I think it's like the good solution here.
Okay, thank you for your advice.
Hello, Lucille from Counting Dream, and I want to talk to you about the arts. Kudos to the artwork on the environment. You done that in only a month, I saw it beforehand. And kudos on the landmarks. Very nice work on the landmarks. You played with the wet floor sign. You played with a little ants watching the TV. And that's why your environment feels a bit more lively. And it's great. So now you have to handle the variation of this is a path the player must go on and the level design part, and include it with a lively feel. Because some of your path on your prototype feels like too much hidden, and we miss the readability of your level. So did you plan any work? Did you have any clues on how to make it more readable?
Yes, we had these problems. Of course, we had less time to handle this, so we managed to do our best. But yeah, sometimes you can't see your way through, and I think also it's about scaling the objects. Maybe thinking about all the scale should be perfect, like the perfect tweak. But yes, we're gonna work on this. Maybe this would be an element of answer. I don't have much more. Do you have some elements of answer, Astrid? I don't know. C'était pour trouver une solution sur. Enfin, si on avait des solutions sur les voies de passage qui n'étaient pas hyper. Je sais pas, je te passe ou.
So, thank you for your feedback first. That's cool. And yes, we have some very big problematic to the navigation and to understand where we go. And we don't have lots of time for that. And thanks to the external here, we finished that, yes. And we try to work on still because we continue maybe to finish that. But thanks, we think about it.
Salomé Strapazon from Ubisoft. Thank you for your presentation. You did so much work. The progression is amazing compared to 1 month ago, I think, maybe a bit more. So it's cute and it looks tough to play, so I think it's a success. It's also fun, apparently, so that's cool. I'm very impressed. All the art, the mechanics, the goal, the gameplay, everything, even the sound, everything comes working together very well in the same direction. Of course, you have lots of work to do still on the consistency of your materials, on the things and whatever. You know, we don't feel enough the stop motion. Maybe it's going to be on the animation, on the environment itself, on the materials, on something. But you have already a personal and original universe. We can see it now, so it's very interesting. So it's not a question, it's just feedback. So yeah, and enjoy the feedbacks you have here. I don't know all those people, but very smart, you know. So don't worry for the cut. Cut is good, you know. You can keep dream for another project after. It's not a problem. And yeah, thanks a lot. I'm very impressed for your project. It's very interesting and very nice.
Thank you.
Let's congrats them. So
Thank you very much.
Congrats to the team, and so it was the last question or comments for you. So congrats again, and let's welcome the next team called Trust.
Hello, thank you for being here. We are excited to present our project called Trust. The team is composed of 11 members. They are Baptiste, Charlotte, and Kaya as game designers, Yann, Antoine, and Anna as game artists. There are Etienne and Marc as programmers, Nadia for UX design and user research, and Dorian as sound designer, and myself as project manager. We have an external person who helps us on UI options and logical implementation. His name is Nathan, and he's currently working as a lead developer and game designer in freelance. We thank you in advance for your attention, and we can start.
Nostalgie de mes jours d'enfance, de ces jours passés au cœur de la France. Avec passion, je me souviens de cette chanson, de ce refrain qui me revient. C'est la valse que j'entendais dans mon quartier du vieux Paris. La mélodie le soir montait joyeusement dans le ciel gris. Sur les trottoirs on souriait.
La rue, le bois de Boulogne était fleuri.
If you like one-player games, if you have a PC, if you enjoy following and having a strong impact on an intense narration, like in Disco Elysium, if you appreciate exploring your environment, like in Silent Hill 2, and gaze your eyes on amazing cinematics, like in Control, you might want to lend us an ear.
Been in the station for 3 years. 3 years in the middle of nowhere, during which we couldn't find a way to solve the demographic crisis. Or at least, not in an ethical way. Man cannot reproduce anymore. And the only thing we managed to do is clone some small samples of life. This won't do. Everyone is on edge. And to top it all, Dan was found murdered this morning. I need to investigate on who did this. Because it certainly wasn't me. And I fear for my life. In the vast prism of relationships between people, trust is a very particular construct, as we usually build it over time and destroy it in seconds. We can put a trust in physical people, entities, or companies. But no matter who or what we choose to trust, we often end up with this question. Once your trust in something has been shattered, is it possible to rebuild it? Called Trust is an investigation game, revolving around the relationships between people. We wanted to explore the paradigm between perceptions and how they can be affected. Have you ever heard of quantum computing? To make it very simple, it's the idea that an infinite number of computers can focus on the same task at the same time to come up with an almost immediate answer to a same question. What if, to simulate it, we were to clone ourselves multiple times and observe how these clones react? This is what happens in Cold Trust. This is what you have to discover, then decide to either put an end to or use to your advantage. You play as a group of clones who are totally ignorant of this experiment, just like you at the beginning, until one of them gets brutally murdered, forcing them and you to investigate on the situation. Will you try to reach the original, to obtain answers to your questions? Will you attempt to kill every clone you encounter? Or will you find a solution to end the experiment? During this adventure, not only will you question your ethics, but also the friends you made along the way. And it's up to you to decide how this will end.
Dan is dead. The gynecologist of the team was found murdered. Why did he die? And who did it? It could be Azima, the pragmatic biologist who tends to be a little too bossy. Or was it Eden, the creative thinker anxious about the future? Or maybe it was Kyle, the quiet explorer, obsessed by myth and legends. In terms of design, the challenge was to achieve having very different characters despite the similarities. We wanted to avoid the scientist cliché. Here is Azima, the leader of the mission. She tends to prioritize her work over her relationships. She is currently wearing the Madara crew outfit, which had to be both comfortable and practical. On the other side, we have Eden. She made a whim to get a fancy overall that fits better her personality. She's a dreamer, always full of energy. We use staging tools such as lighting and composition to emphasize character paradigm. We achieved having emotional cinematics through the use of performance capture. We developed our own pipeline to record facial and body motion and sound. We wanted our character to act as close as our actors. We also wanted our characters to look like puppets, to give a wing to the clone. However, they are capable of emotional expression that create an immersive empathy with the player.
We wanted to give life to the character through the voice. So the voice acting was very important for us. Here, there is an example of Eden's voice.
Kate. She passed away a few months after this letter. I miss her so much.
Madara's facility is gigantic, isolated in the middle of an Arctic plain. Inspired by the brutalist movement and the old Soviet architecture, we wanted to set the place in a different timeline from ours, including a gap between the retro design of the environment inside and the high technological development. We start in Eden's bedroom, a very warm space personalized by its inhabitant. Every bedrooms in the facility are on the same architecture model. It's the characters who will have an impact on this place to transform them into a personal enclave.
And to add warmness on some places, we have added some intragenetic music, for example, on Eden's room.
We wanted an abnormally gigantic building compared to the size of the team of scientists, just like in the movie The Shining. The important scale ratio also interested us to propose a feeling of loneliness to the player, as you can see in these corridors used by the player to transit between more important environments.
We'll use the sound also to create a feeling of loneliness for the player by using contrast between the sound and the silence. This is also why we created cold and silent atmospheres. And there is also a big work to do on the acoustic of the places.
Another important place for the laboratory, we wanted to give it a sacred aspect, where knowledge is elevated to the state of almost religious obsession. That is why we built this space around this bright sarcophagus in the middle, a strange form for cryogenic storage of human genome, an unusual machine highlighted by a very strong golden and zenith light. There's a strong contrast between the poorly functional, austere interior and relaxation spaces to create some diversities in the facility.
We take a lot of inspirations from movies, which is why the cameras are designed with a cinematic aspect in mind. The cameras will have multiple behaviors, multiple framings, and the thematic will receive a special care to reflect this aspect. In game, these angles and camera movements will emphasize the emotion of the characters and help the player to identify with them.
I told you a little earlier that we wanted to explore the paradigm of perceptions. And to us, one of the best ways to do that is through the characters. So we thought it would be a waste to just play as one, and not all of them. So in contrast, you can play all 4 of the scientists, and yes, it does change the way you play. Each of the characters has a special ability. Kyle, being obsessed by myth and legends, is capable of finding patterns and reading ciphers. Dan, who got a bit too curious and actually created a group with his clones, is capable of asking other Dans from other facilities to do things for him. Eden, who is highly empathetic, can read people's reaction and guess how they want her to act. While Hazima, who is extremely cold-blooded, is entirely immune to stress and can planify a course of action even in the face of danger. But that's not all there is. Since we only let you play one character per chapter that we choose for you, the sharing of information is made much more important. Maybe I discovered something while playing as Hazima, but if I didn't tell Eden about it, Eden will not be influenced by it when I play as her. So your choices of dialogue will have an impact on the narrative and provoke different reactions in your friends. But that doesn't mean you should share everything you learn, because in some situations, knowledge is power, while in other, ignorance is bliss.
I bet you sometimes wonder what would have happened if you made different choices in life. In Cold Trust, we give you this possibility. For the first time you play the game, you will go through the chapters normally until you reach your first ending. You will then discover a new menu, the timeline of the game. This allows you to go back on certain events and make different choices. Let's analyze this one. Here, I wake up and completed the first chapter. However, there is a puzzle that I didn't solve, and that it could have led to a different event. And then I go on to the second chapter, where I had to make a choice. And here is the outcome I got depending on the choice I made. After getting this outcome, I obtained half of a clue, but it is incomplete. We want to encourage players to replay the chapter where they made the choice. So if I go back and choose differently this time, I will get the other outcome and obtain the other half of the clue. Once I have done so, I would get a complete clue to the puzzle in the first chapter that I couldn't solve earlier. And then I can decide to go back to the first chapter and solve it and proceed to another route. This is what happens in the vertical slice. In the full game, the connections will be more complex and separated in 3 narrative branches that communicate with each other. Through the use of gating, we'll ask the player to explore each of the branches if they want to understand the whole plot. They will be able to explore the natural flow of the events, but also what happened before they started playing. We also didn't want to have a canonical good ending, so any ending of any of the branches is equally important and never entirely satisfying. You can't have everyone alive and save the world at the same time. Called trust is meant for players that are curious and observant, 2 qualities that will give them the possibility to foresee some elements of the plot. For example, every time you reload or go back to an earlier point, you are actually spawned in a different facility and playing with a different set of clones that look almost exactly the same as the one you were playing with. Only there are tiny differences between them. Maybe the memo was black and now is red. If you pay enough attention, you can spot the differences and unravel some secrets.
Now, let's say that you enter a chapter. What does it look like? What is your main objective? What are you supposed to do? Well, actually, Cold Trust is a game which relies on investigation and exploration, so you'll do both. Hopefully, we found a system which will help the player through their objective, guiding them, and also offering space for a tiny bit of reflection. We found a system in which the main features is an objective log, we choose to call the mind map. And let's explore how it works. To take knowledge of your goals, you can, whenever you want, access what we call the mind map. This is an objective log which will give you your objective, but also the missing step to accomplish it. Entering the station, you'll find multiple objects. Some will give you lore or information about the universe of Cold Trust, but some will give you clue and update your objective log, your mind map. It will evolve with you and your exploration. Let's use a concrete but quick example. Let's say one of your colleagues, Dan, is stuck in the bathroom, and you should find a way to actually free him from there. For this example, I'm going to use a schematic, which are not representative of the final appearance of the mind map, but which will help you to understand its behavior. Starting this chapter, let's imagine that I open my mind map and I can see that my main objective is to get down out of the toilet. I can also see the multiple empty nodes, which represent the missing step to succeed in my current objective. But hey, we got nothing more to do there, so let's start exploring. Near me, I can find a circuit board, and getting it, I got a feedback warning me that it was added to my mind map. And if I open it, it did appear, because the circuit board is one of the preliminary steps to get Dan out of the toilet. The toilet door is the next thing I put my eyes on, so my first reflex is to go interact with it. Of course, I can't open it yet, but I still get another feedback warning me that the toilet door was added to my mind map. And it was, but it appeared in a kind of grayish and unsatisfied color. And for cause, this is indeed one of the elements I need to interact with to get Dan out of the toilet, but until I didn't discover its own preliminary step, I can't use it for this purpose. Fast forwarding, I can find an emitter, which I should see to calibrate on a computer, and because I already found a circuit board, I managed to combine those and create a card path. And congratulations, now that I have all the preliminary steps of the toilet door, we can go back to it. And success. Now that we have the card path, we can open the door, liberate Dan, and you officially complete your objective and therefore the chapter.
So now, let's see behind the scene what we have done. One of our main focuses has to give game designer full control about the narration and the progression in the game. That's why we choose to make all the logic and feedback triggers handled by them, using the Unreal blueprint, glued together by the state system and utilities function made by us, the programmer. Like that, we can split the progression logic between the several objects in the game, with some specific cases, and avoid the unreadable and monolithic manager in it. For the dialogues, we choose to handle the logic and management of UI thanks to an improved version of not yet dialogue plugin system, an external plugin where we have added voice and animation handling. Like you have seen, we have also kind of complex UI, and we wanted to make it more lively. So we use the Definitive Painter external plugin, where it uses a sign distance field to make a UI. It permits to programmers to link more easily UI and state of the game, but also to prevent some more works for the graphists to do.
Speaking about UI, from the beginning of the project, we wanted the menu to be accessible. But what does that mean? We respected guidelines regarding the fonts, the sizes, the contrast requirements, highlights, etc. Here, the players will be able to make changes and have a gaming experience that meets their needs. For example, for players who are visually impaired, they will be able to change the contrast and the light of the game environment. For players who have a severe form of low vision, we design a contrast mode or an eagle vision mode where interactable objects are highlighted. For players who are deaf or hard hearing, we implemented subtitles. These subtitles can be removed, rescale, and change the background. And for motor disability, it's possible to change the key of the game and prevent the player if two keys are similar. When we ended the design of the first chapter, we had interrogation about how player will experience it. Do the player understand how to interact with the object? How do they move in the level design? Do they understand how to use the mind map system? In order to do so, with the programmers team, we designed a tracking tool. So it tracks the movement of the player and the time. You can see here in the picture on your right, there is a level design with a line. When the playtester starts playing, it's blue, and when it stops, it's red. It also tracks the interaction with an object. So you can see in the picture on your left that there is red cross when a player uses an object. So the players haven't any trouble with the interaction with object. They moved in the level design as we planned it. However, we needed to change a door in the first chapter because it was too close to another door that the player needed to open, and it was confusing. Regarding the mind map system, it didn't work. The UI of the mind map was too far away, and the player didn't pay attention to it. So we put it in the HUD. It was way easier and more accessible.
About the marketing positioning, according to our pillars, narrative and investigation were to be analyzed. So we chose two axes and established their opposites to see where cultures could be positioned. The first is linear narrative experience and multiple paths. The second is light investigation mechanics and deep investigation mechanics. We then list several games that we had benchmarked or that were close to our type of game. We consider cultures to be on the border between these two axes. We don't have deep investigation mechanics, but we still have elements to collect objects, to solve small puzzles, and to move forward in the exploration. And we have the objective screen to guide the player. About the narrative, we consider cultures also in the middle of the axis, because the player has crucial choices to make and can embody different characters. Afterwards, we looked at their selling price, average time to complete the game, average sales estimate on Steam, and financial profit. In addition to the games listed above, we were also interested in Life is Strange, released in 2015, because their episodic sales model, which is similar to the one chosen for Cold Trust, seemed relevant to analyze. Based on high estimates, with the production of 6 episodes that we call chapters, we would have to double the team by reinforcing each profession, and we will be on 2.5 years of production, for a total cost of about 2.8 million euros. Thanks to our market analysis and cost estimate calculation, we wish to sell the complete package of 6 episodes for 34.99 euros. In order to recoup the incurred cost, we have an estimate of 117,000 copies to sell. But ultimately, why may you be interested? If you want a game that lets you embody all the characters, emphasize on a heavy narrative and the importance of your choices, we strongly recommend you to dive into the universe of Cold Trust. And, as the video is worth 1,000 words, let's see it.
To me once again why you put a trap in the toilet door?
Because someone needed to learn about privacy.
But did it have to break everything?
Don't worry. The electric discharge fried a few circuits, but I should be able to make something to open the door. Kate. She passed away a few months after this letter. I miss her so much.
I just want to talk to you.
Stop lying!
Please. Listen, we are not saying you did it. Eden, come on. Open the door.
Commencing printing. Time estimated 4 minutes. Would you like some tea while you wait, Miss Tremblay?
Thank you so much for your attention, and we are now ready and willing to answer your questions.
Thank you. The presentation was amazing, actually. I really felt deeply immersed into the history and the mechanics, so it's fantastic. This is a piece of advice. I think you should really look up for a transmedia strategy for your game, because it's the kind of game that is easily translated to other media as well. Maybe the universe, maybe not the exact same story as the game, but you could build from it on a transmedia strategy. Maybe pitch later, but later look up for a pitch for animation, maybe live action series, comic books, whatever. It can really be expanded, and that's right on point. A few technicalities about the UI. The subtitles collide with other information that should never happen. It's like 101 of user interface. It's a big mistake there. What else? Very good artistic choices. Facial animation needs maybe rework from the ground up, I guess, since face rigging, and then we do the acting and everything, because facial, movement feels quite right, but facial animation needs a lot of rework, even for the pre-production phase. I think it just falls flat in comparison with everything else, because everything else is so detailed, so well done. It doesn't match up. Otherwise, I think that would be all. Everything else was fantastic. I really loved it. I would really like to see this game and play it and get it on PC. Also, I think it's compatible with other platforms. It's good that you're looking for PC right now, but it's very compatible and very portable, even to mobile, so you should consider that as well. Congratulations.
Thank you for this advice. For the UI part, we don't have so many times to some polishing. We have a kind of thought about a system of forces that prevent the overlapping of information, etc. So it was thought, but not. We don't have enough time. Also, for the platform, we choose PC first, because we think also there is some kind of information that with kind of point-and-click thing with the interfaces, etc., that would be hard to adapt on consoles. So I think that's the main point of doing PC. But of course, this game with a little extra more work about the accessibility things, etc., would be portable on console, but
Hello. I'm really impressed by the amount of work that you created for this project. The fact that as a student group you've done so much and you explored so much stuff. I rarely see student groups that do performance capture, even if it's like a bit low-tech, etc. It's not perfect, but you tried it and you faced the problem and you try to find solutions. So really kudos on that. The universe feels very credible, and the amount of care you put in it, whether it's in narration or presentation. It's even like the vignetting on the small Madora picture at the beginning. It's simple stuff, but it makes everything real, and we really want to believe in your world. And I think the environment work was done smartly as well, because you put the detail where it matters. In investigation scenes, you didn't put like crazy amount of detail in like empty hallways or stuff like that. You were really focused, and you made plenty of really great design choices. So really congratulations. I don't have much more feedbacks.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. It was very cool. I had a question about the evolution of the trust between the characters. You talk a lot about it in the presentation, but did you thought about a way to materialize it in the game through a UI or something like this to get feedback, or how it evolves during the scenario?
We consider the idea of having a UI that reflects the thoughts of the character. So it's not really visible in what we showed you, but we want the UI to evolve with the characters, to reflect what's happening, how they feel. So yeah, that would be very nice.
I have a small question. What prevents me from just interacting with everything and solving the puzzle this way? Because it doesn't seem to need me to do anything for it to resolve. Like at some point you're looking for a password and then you have it, you just interact and the password is done and you can open the door. So there's no really, like there is this mind map, but this mind map should be in my head when I'm looking through the thing in the room and I should find a solution and, I don't know, open the door. But here it seems that the game is doing it for me, so what's the puzzle aspect then?
Just like Mark said a little earlier, we wanted the player to be able to input passwords. We just didn't have time to develop this part of the game. But yes, initially you're supposed to find the passwords, remember them, and write them. So it's not fully automatic.
Well, yeah, okay, but if you type the password, but let's take another example. For the first room, you find a computer, and then you see that you need to find something else after, and then something else before. So you look for something, but you make no logical connection yourself. The game is making them for you, so that's what I'm talking about.
It's kind of an accessibility thing. The mind map is totally optional. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. And also we put puzzles in some chapters that are actually used in other chapters. So, yeah.
Okay. It's more of a feedback than a real question, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I get it.
I just want to add something, sorry. I just want to add something to what Shui just said. We tested the mind map. Our persona, so our players are mid-code gamers, so they took around 4, 5, 6 minutes to resolve the first chapter. We know it could be an issue for hardcore gamer. We are aware of this, and think we need more iteration of the mind map.
Hello, I'm Aurélien, sound designer at Ubisoft. First of all, congratulations for your work on especially on the world building. The sound work on ambience is really great. I would have loved to have a little bit of footsteps in the long hallway that would talk a lot about the space and everything. I had a question about the music you put in our face on the laboratory. You seem to, it seems like you wanted to tell us something with this, because it's really church-like and everything. And I didn't get what. So if you can just explain a bit.
We use the laboratory as a church. That's why there is the light on the center. It's like in the nave. So we wanted to add some religious symbolism on this place. This is where we have kept the human genome, and we wanted to create some symbolic around this.
Okay, great. I was wondering because it's really in your face as a sign, and actually I didn't get if it was music that was played in the space or not. And I know you have a lot of inspiration for Lynch and stuff like that. So I was wondering if it was a kind of interspace, and we like to throw ourselves off, and we don't know what actually is happening.
When you are far enough, this is specialized on the room, so you can hear that it's coming from a special place. But I wanted to make the player feel like he doesn't know if it's real or in his head. So when you are too close, well, the volume was a bit higher than I expected. But the goal was to have the player asking himself if it was real or not.
It was a kind of a strange thing that's happening, and we are asking ourselves the question: is the design that way? Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello, Mathieu from Tactical Adventures. Thanks a lot and congrats on the presentation and demo. A very impressive work on the environmental design and art and sound atmosphere. I want to insist again on the point on the investigation system and the mind map, because we just had the same problem in production. We had a feature and it was very UI driven. And the thing is, if you have this UI to solve the puzzle, the gameplay becomes the UI, instead of your gameplay, which is interacting with objects, interacting with characters on the walkie-talkie. So my advice would be to remove the mind map. And if the players has forgotten what the objective was, it just can interact again with the item, with the characters. Tell me again what I was supposed to do, because it's your gameplay. So I think the mind map is somehow short-circuiting the intentions of the creative vision. But that's my opinion. Anyway, thank you and congrats.
Hello, sorry. I'm Sylvain, gameplay programmer at Ubisoft. Yeah, congratulations for the presentation and the work you've done. It's very impressive. I have a question about the Intel sharing you talked about during the presentation. That you talked about a feature about characters have to can share intels with other characters, and that can unlock or not progressions. How can it work with the fact that you can replay chapters? Because at one moment I will have all information that have been shared with a specific character I will play. So path will be locked forever, or how do you plan to make it work?
There were two possibilities. In Zero Time Escape, Zero Time Dilemma, they used a type of probability. We might use that because since we are switching facility, we are switching previous events too. So maybe we will use fact like you have one chance out of three to be in this timeline or in this timeline, or we will just use the chronological events that you had previously. It's still in discussion.
Okay, so I will continue with another question. So let's say I told to Dan the Intel A earlier. So if I have a path that will unlock if I didn't tell this Intel, and I want to go to that path, how can I do?
It's an interesting question. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Diane from ICO Partners, we're a marketing agency and media agency. You just gave, when doing the break-even calculations, I think also maybe some of the other teams did that, taking just 30% off, but you actually have to take the VAT and taxes, and also depending on where you sell, you might have a currency change fee. So generally, it's better to make calculations rather about 0.5, something like that, which makes it basically expensive to break even. So it's something to take into account, or maybe you want to reduce the scope and make it less expensive so you can break even more easily, well, depending on. And on the gameplay side, I really want to stress also that for an investigation game like this, while looking at the gameplay video, it feels like everything is pushed on you, like all this information about and your gameplay also has to make sure that the player has understood you know, what to do with all the information, and that it's actually means something to them before you give them something else to build on that, so that, because otherwise they can just feel like, you know, it's automatic, and after you don't understand exactly what's happening with the family of this character, and so this, yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. And yes, about the calculation, it was high expectations and estimations, but yes, thank you for the advice.
Hello again. So I'm currently at Creative Assembly, which makes a very different type of game, but I was previously the vice president at Telltale Games, which does very much this game. I saw you on the mind map. I was involved with the Walking Dead series, and you're much more investigative. That's where you're differentiating. You're pulling it down into that direction. So take some of the feedback in light of your audience isn't hardcore gamers. It's really not. It's people who are interested in a story being revealed to them. They need to feel clever in that process, so you can't push too much information, and you need to give them a chance to absorb it. So the feedback's all valid, but just keep it in mind that what you're not trying to do is move yourself into a gamer hardcore direction, but instead a entertainment with an interesting involvement angle. And I've got years worth of information to get to you if you want to know more about this development, but I would say I've got a couple key points. They're not questions, they're feedback. Your audience will reject what you're doing if you try to force your version of things. They want to feel like they're in control of flowing and moving the story along. But the production costs of doing that are really high. And so you have to pick deliberately a couple of different strategies that you think map to the largest percentage of your audience as you can, and then represent that through your gameplay and your experience. We spent 10 years developing technology to do lip syncing, to make the lip syncing really flexible so that we could actually have that story-driven, be reflected in the acting of the characters. There was a great deal of work that went into that representation. Telltale's not famous for its tricky gameplay, right? Yeah, I mean, a decision, very simple decision. Which mechanic you choose is really not the relevant thing. You pick a mechanic, allow them to make decisions, and feed that into your system, and then make them feel heard and reflected in that. I think you can do that with what you're doing, but you've got the distraction you were talking about earlier. The facial animation system right now is a distraction. You're going to have to overcome that. Your costs don't reflect what it would cost to actually develop the technology and the competency to do this at a level that's competitive with other narrative games. So you're going to have to include more costs of development and infrastructure, or you need to partner with a company that's doing this and get them interested in working with you, or acquiring you, or something along that lines. So your budget's not really in alignment with the reality of what you're doing. I got more to say. We'll talk in person rather than have everybody's time there. Did you want to?
Thank you. I have just a stone to put on the last pile. I think the mechanism as you are going back on your decision is very dangerous. It's interesting because generally when you make, I know a lot of people try to make games like that. You have a multiplication of the complexity of the game in all terms, in terms of gameplay, but in terms of assets you have to produce, number. I'm thinking of a project that my friend Eric Viennot made, what shows Brooklyn Story, where you can come back in the story, and they never finished the game because it was too. One of the reasons it's because it became very complicated. So if you had to realize this game, you have to calculate the complexity of the game at each step and change your tree of decision according to the reasonable level of complexity.
One very important point. You said PC first. Telltale Games was a viable company, and it was making a large amount of profit because it was able to get on 34 different platforms. Right? One build pushed out to 34 different platforms. You need to be on as many different platforms. If you're going to take this approach, you need to take as many different avenues to meet the audience as possible. So again, the production costs, the audience penetration, all of that you need to analyze a little bit more differently than you have.
Thank you for advice. It was very interesting. We have kind of, for the timeline, we can go back. It's very interesting to have this point of view of the technical thing. Also, for the multi-platform, we have kind of CI/CD pipeline for now, for breeding for PC. So maybe with kind of work, we can do it with some partners, etc. But all you said was very relevant to us, so thank you.
Hello. Mylène, a marketing person. So I have two comments and one question. It will be quick. First, your marketing positioning is not really good, I think, because it doesn't show any strength of your game. You show the game as light detective mechanic and no choices. So if you present the game like that, no one will want to buy it. So you need to show your strength in it. Another one is like your game design should serve the narration and not the other way around, because in the demo you have this situation when someone say, yeah, I know the password, it's his son names. No one will say that in a crisis situation. You will give the password, not ask for the person to look at it. So it just breaks the immersion and it's not believable, and you need to have a game that you believe in, you think the story is actually happening. And finally, my question, the trailer is really, really good. Congrats on it. But for me, when I watch it, I feel like it's a horror game with psychological horror in it, and I don't see this at all in the game. So, is it because you plan to do it, but it was not in the demo, or it just because it makes the trailer better, but it's not in the game? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions we can answer it if, of course, my colleague want to complete mine. About the ludo-narrative dichotomy we have, for example, in the laboratory, as you said. Yeah, indeed, this is the proof for me that we need to rework those puzzles. We need to rework what approach we have on those, especially because, as you told earlier, there's a risk that I can click everywhere and that I can complete a puzzle. For example, this is one of the weaknesses of those at the moment. With more time and iteration, I'm sure we can have something which is way more coherent. On the long term, in the full experience, we would like to have something which is really close to the psychological horror. This is kind of there's an introduction mission which is not at all in a horror or distress context, but on the long term, we would love to have something which is way more dramatic. We want to have explosion of color when someone is really distressed. We talk about the UI, which could actually change when someone is in a stressful situation, for example. This is the kind of thing we want to emphasize on later on. I'm not sure if I answered everything. But thank you. Thanks a lot for your feedback, of course.
Hello, Marine Mag, video game art gallerist and art books editor for Pix and Love. I just want to thank you, guys and girls, for your presentation. You are very good storytellers. It's not easy to do that, so thank you. It's really cool to see that all the visual and artistic references you use are actually present on the screen. Artistic direction of your game is very strong, coherent, and appealing. I really love too the space opera music that you use, because it's really important in terms of atmosphere, and you've done a great work with environment storytelling, with the camera too. So I just want to thank you, and may the force be with you.
Hello, Vincent, I'm designer at Ubisoft. I had a huge problem with the way you deliver the dialogue in your demo, because it's whole walls of text of the same color. It's very difficult to follow, and I think that as an advice for future presentation, you should have worked on either having a short and quick text, or having voiced text, because or maybe, I don't know, a color for each character who is talking. Some ways to facilitate, to make it readable. I am also disappointed because during your presentation you presented each character with specificities, and I would have liked to see some mechanics about that. And I had other things to say, but I will say it personally after.
To answer to your question about the UI in the game, we know that we have a lot of work to do yet. You talked about color, using color. We thought about that. The problem is accessibility. Not all players can see the same colors. So we thought about using colors and icons, like in Telltale. Like each answer have a different icon that we can choose.
Also, for the aim of the Master 2 was to deliver a vertical slice, but since all the abilities make a lot of complexity in the gameplay side, art side, programming side, we choose to cut it to deliver a more, I think, qualitative experience. But of course, this kind of thing is more about choices, very difficult choices to make with the production.
Salome from Ubisoft. Thank you for your presentation and for the quality of your work. It's very rich of lots of content in your presentation. I will stay just on the hard side for my feedback, sorry. I was very blessed by the ambience, the strong atmosphere in the cinematic and inside the environment. It's really amazing. You know, you really work well the lighting, and you use it very in a good way. Also, I have seen some colors in the ground to guide. It's very clever. I really love the art direction, the contrast between this kind of warm look retro that you have on the character, on the props, and even on the sound, and also this contrast with the cold brutalism architecture is very interesting, and it's working well. It gives lots of good atmosphere. I will have just one advice, maybe it could be nice to reduce the length of that corridor, because it was a bit something. But congratulations, it was very, very good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your feedback, of course. We thought about the corridor. You thought about shrinking it. We are going to think about, sorry.
Thanks for this very warm exchange. Let's congratulate the team and congratulations to all the teams of this morning. As we had, well, we are way of time, so I would suggest that we start 15 minutes later this afternoon, so 15 after 2. I'm saying that also for the people online. Thank you for this great exchange this morning, and congrats again to all the teams of students of this morning. So see you at 2:15.